Welcome back into Pigskin Perspectives. In basketball, it's feast week, which is a term that I love. It is feast week for football also. Just a cornucopia of football is ahead of us. A lot of college. We'll get to that in a minute. NFL, 4 days of NFL action this week. That's something that has rarely been done before. Since there was no review of last week's stuff, we will touch on Canada. But first, since we didn't do a recap yesterday, we're going to do what we usually do, get into college football. But before we get into any previews, any six packs, I do want to take a quick look at the college football rankings because there was a massive shakeup last night. Georgia is still at 1, Ohio State's still at 2, Michigan's still at 3, but at number 4 is Washington. They have moved up one spot. Florida State has moved down one spot. Washington coming off a huge win against Oregon State on the road, a 22-20 victory. Even though they did not score a point in the second half, Washington still escapes with the victory. That was mostly enough to move them up to 4, but I think that they would have been moving up with any type of win anyways, given that Jordan Travis for Florida State, their quarterback, their leader, goes down with an injury. It's going to be out for the rest of the season in their game against North Alabama. That is definitely a game changer. I know the committee says that they don't factor that kind of stuff in. They 100% do. Don't believe their lies because half of what they say to you is lies, but hey, what difference is there now? At 6 was Oregon. The top 10 stayed the same after that. 6 Oregon, 7 Texas, 8 Alabama, 9 Missouri, 10 Louisville. Number 11 was Penn State. This is obviously the spot where Oregon State was, so everybody kind of shifted up one with Ole Miss at 12, Oklahoma 13, LSU 14, Arizona 15, and Oregon State dropping all the way down to 16, which I found quite peculiar because if you look down just a little bit here, Tennessee is sitting at 21. They're 7-4. I believe last week they were at number 19 after a blowout loss to Missouri. Then they get blown out this week against Georgia, and they only fall 2 spots. And Oregon barely lose to Washington, the number 4 team in the nation now, and they fall 5 spots, I should say. Make it make sense. I get that Arizona beat them, so you have the head-to-head. They have the same record. I get Arizona being in front of them. But Oregon State's a better team than Oklahoma. They're a better team than LSU. They're probably a better team than Ole Miss. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have dropped at all. I'm just saying a 5-point drop is just absolutely insane. 17 was Iowa, which is odd. I know that they're in the Big Ten title, but they haven't played offense all year, which doesn't help their case. 18 is Notre Dame, 19 Kansas State, 20 Oklahoma State, aforementioned 21 Tennessee. At 22 is NC State. The highest ranked group of 5 team at 23 is Tulane. We will get to them in a few. That's just a quick preview of a 6-pack game potentially ahead. At number 24 is Clemson, and the only other group of 5 team that sneaks into this top 25 at number 25 is Liberty. They currently sit at 11-0, I believe, in the CUSA. They do have a CUSA conference title game ahead of them against New Mexico State. We will see if they can win that conference and potentially sneak into a New Year's Six bowl game. So given that, like I said, I just wanted to do a quick recap. Don't need to go through the full games. Just wanted to give a quick recap because let's just say this. The 6-pack has been upgraded this week. So usually, hey, 6-pack, it's good, cool. But when you got college football on Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, we got to do something and expand it here. So we doubled it. We made it a 12-pack. So let's get straight into this. We're starting off on Thursday with the Egg Bowl. The only college football game on Thanksgiving has been almost the past decade now, I want to say. and it has lived up to the hype. I love watching the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving. It just seems to get hilarious every year just because reasons. You had the Ole Miss piss in 2019 when the Ole Miss player acted like he was peeing like a dog after scoring a touchdown with 1 second left, got a 15-yard penalty, and then the extra point that would have tied the game ends up being missed because of that penalty, and Mississippi State walked away with the victory in that one. You just have Lane Kiffin's antics every year, it seems. Obviously, Mike Leach, this was the last game he coached in last year before his very unfortunate passing. Still miss him every day. But this game just always gets wild and wacky, and especially on Thanksgiving when all the spotlight is somewhat on it, even though there's NFL games on, especially at 8 o'clock at night. You just can't go against it. I don't know if this game's going to be in this slot next year. Given Texas coming back to the conference, you're going to have that Texas A&M game. They haven't played since 2011. They were a constant for that Thanksgiving night game. I don't know if that's potentially coming back or if that's going to be that main Saturday night game, because they did play it either Thanksgiving or Saturday night, basically. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens there. I feel like the Egg Bowl on Thanksgiving has become quite a tradition, so I would hate to see them go away from it. But given that you're getting back a game that is steeped in tradition, teams that haven't faced off since 2010, so that would be 14 years, absolutely hate for each other, even though they were in two separate conferences the past 14 years. It's hard to go wrong with either of them. I think we're still ending up with an SEC game on Thanksgiving. I just don't know which one. But either one will be very entertaining. Let's move on to the Friday slate. I'll only put 2 games on here because it's a good slate, not a great slate. There could be better games on here. There could be worse games. So first off, like I said, the top-ranked Group of 5 team, number 23, Tulane, host off against UTSA, a team that has looked very good since their quarterback Frank Harris, has come back from injury. I believe they are undefeated in conference play. I believe their 3 losses are out of conference. So this game is basically potentially an American Conference title play-in game, if you could say it. It's kind of a mini playoff. Tulane has looked really good this year. They've kind of been stumbling the past few weeks, though, which is a little bit worrying. I don't think UTSA is getting into the New Year's Six, even if they win the American. Because of those 3 losses, you usually have to have 1 or less losses as a Group of 5, win or 2, get in there. Really, the only 3-4 teams that fit in there right now are Tulane, Liberty, which are both ranked, Toledo, which sit at 10-1, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the other one is SMU. I don't remember if they have 2 losses. They potentially could have 2 losses. I could be wrong there. But those are the teams you're basically looking at for that New Year's Six picture right now. It's going to be one of those 4, and I really do have a feeling it's going to be Tulane or Liberty. But this is going to be a real test for Tulane. They get a prime slot on TV-wise. ABC 3:30 Thanksgiving Friday. All eyes mostly going to be tuned into this one. Should be an intriguing game nonetheless, because I think both teams are really good. I know UTSA has lost games this year they probably shouldn't have, but both teams are really good. And then we move on to the late night Friday game. It's the last kick of the night at 8:30. It's the kickoff. It is number 16 Oregon State traveling to Autzen Stadium to face off against the number 6 Oregon Ducks. The final Civil War battle, I should say. That's just the beginning of it right there. We'll get to the Apple Cup in a minute. It's another sneak preview. They'll be in the other 6-pack because they've extended their series. They're going through 2028. Washington State have figured out schedules. It's going to happen. Oregon and Oregon State, I'm not so sure about. I know there was talks, kind of Boise State being a linchpin next year in that Oregon schedule. If they can get out of that, then that opens up the Oregon State option. I honestly don't know if these two want to play each other. I think Oregon State is really, really pissed off that they've been left in the dust, left picking up the crumbs of the Pac-12 with Washington State. And I don't know if they want to continue this. Obviously, for college football's sake, we need to continue rivalries like these. With the delocalization of college football, making these national conferences, it's ruining local rivalries like this. And I know Oregon's going for it for the money, and they want the prestige that comes along with being in the Big Ten, and they want to leave a sinking ship. Makes sense. Oregon State didn't have that option, if we're honest. They don't have that branding. They don't have the winning ability, basically, to get into a big conference like this. I know they tried for the Big 12. I just don't think the Big 12 was an option. I know they don't want the Mountain West because that is a very much downgrade, even though it looks like it's going to end up with a merger and it's still going to be the same anyways. This game is just all about emotion in this one. Obviously, Oregon's still playing for their playoff lives. They have to win this game to have the opportunity at the rematch next week in Las Vegas against the Washington Huskies. I think they pull it off, but just see, here's the thing. There's two rules I always live by. If there's a separation between two rivals happening and one feels that they are being screwed or left out, always bet that team in their final game. Set it against Oklahoma State with Oklahoma this year. They won outright. We go back years now with Pitt and West Virginia, Texas A&M, all those. So Oregon State is the play here. Just spread, not money line. I don't think they win this game. But also factoring in that to me, I call this the Ed Cooley theory, even though I have watched this happen long before Ed Cooley happened. So for those non-college basketball fans, Ed Cooley, head coach at Providence, their best head coach ever. They were having a pretty decent season last year. Still a tournament team. They looked like potential for a second weekend. Probably would have been a 5 seed, 4 seed, somewhere around there. And then starting around February, the team kind of starts falling off a little. And then by mid-March, this team's in free fall. They lose their first round. It was the second round of the Big East tournament to UConn in a game they just never were in. And then I think they faced Kentucky in the 8-9 game, I believe, of the NCAA tournament and just got walked. Then, I don't even know if it was a week later, Ed Cooley announced as head coach of Georgetown. Then it comes out that he's been interviewing for this job since basically February, which lines up to when Providence started going downhill. Now, why am I bringing up the Ed Cooley theory? There's a lot of smoke going around right now, and I don't know if there's a fire to it yet. That Jonathan Smith is more than likely going to be the next head coach at Michigan State. Depending on how long this has been going on, whether this be going back last month or last week, that does play a huge factor here. I'll even go back last year. We kind of saw it with Luke Fickell. The Cincinnati team, I believe, were facing Tulane on Black Friday at Nippert Stadium, a game they probably should have won, even though Tulane was a good team that year. It was a game that Cincinnati should have won. They don't. They didn't look themselves. The coaching wasn't themselves. And then, bam, 48 hours later, Luke Fickell is the head coach at Wisconsin. I kind of have the feeling after watching last week's game against Washington, same thing's happening with Oregon State right now. If Jonathan Smith is truly going to be the next head coach at Michigan State, those wheels have already been put in motion. If that's happening, he's going to be announced on Sunday because that's just the way this world works. I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon cover this game in that case. I don't know if that's the case because the two names that I've heard both have kind of fallen off team-wise. I won't say Oregon State has fallen off as much. They lost that Washington game they probably should have won if we're honest. The other coach is Mike Elko, the head coach of Duke. Duke has fallen off the radar since September. Honestly, they have just disappeared. I think they sit at 6-5 right now or something like that, which not great. I more think Elko will be going to Texas A&M, given his ties to that university, being their offensive coordinator there a few years ago before taking this Duke job. We'll see. That was a very long-winded response because we're getting to a game that is going to be an even more long-winded response. It is number 2 Ohio State traveling to Ann Arbor on Saturday to face off against number 3 Michigan. Big noon Saturday. This game always kicks up at noon anyways, except 2006 when it kicked off at 3:30, I think, because it was number 1 versus number 2, and ESPN kind of demanded it. What a game we are in for. There really are no superlatives for this, honestly. This is the game. It's one of the biggest rivalries in the world. I will not say it's the biggest rivalry in the world because it's not. I think one of these teams behind me right here is a bigger rivalry with another team that wears red that also preside in the same city as them, technically, kind of. Also, some national rivalries much bigger than this. We kind of saw a little bit last night on the soccer side with Brazil and Argentina. Just despicable acts of violence last night at the Maracanã. You don't really see violence in these, and I'm not saying violence is what makes a rivalry. It is, but it isn't, if we're honest. But these two, absolute hate for each other. You wait 365 days to play this game, especially if you are at either of these institutions, if we're honest. Michigan has taken it more seriously the past few years. We'll be honest with that. Now, could that be because they were cheating? Who knows? I don't even know if I want to touch that today, honestly. I feel like it's being so drawn out. The story's never ending, honestly. I don't know. You know what? We're not going to touch that today, even though that is kind of a big factor in this game, given Jim Harbaugh will not be on the sidelines, given that I don't think he'll be on the sidelines again for Michigan, but hey, don't kill the messenger. It's pretty obvious who I'm picking to win this game. I'm picking Ohio State. Losing to Michigan 2 straight years, I think, has very much lit a fire under Ryan Day. He needs to win this game, and if they don't win this game, whoo boy, I really don't know what's going to happen, honestly, if they lose this game. He's not getting fired. He's not getting fired, but boy, oh boy, does that Ohio State fan base get very loud if they lose this game and lose 3 straight to Michigan and lose to a Michigan team that hasn't looked good since, it was unveiled that they were stealing signs and Jim Harbaugh hasn't been coaching. But what can I say? I think Ohio State win this game. I think it will be close. I'm going to throw this in. J.J. McCarthy hasn't looked good since the Michigan State game, so last month. He didn't look good against Penn State. He looked fine against Purdue. I'll give him that. He didn't look good against Penn State. He only threw it 9 times or 8 times. I know that's more coaching style or whatever you want to say. He didn't look good in that game. He looked bad last week against an Maryland team. You're now going up against Ohio State. You got to bring your A game. If you look like you did against Maryland, or if you look like what you did against Penn State, it's over. That's all I'm going to say. Still think Ohio State win this one. Relatively close, but a very entertaining game nonetheless. Stressful for the sides that are rooting. Joyful watching for the neutral viewer. Ohio State wins this one. Moving on, another game in that 12 o'clock window on ABC. It is the battle for the Governor's Cup, I believe. Number 10 Louisville hosting Kentucky in a bluegrass showdown. That might be what it's called. I don't know. I keep saying every week, Louisville is fraudulent. I don't know if they're going to get caught because they escaped Miami last week. Kentucky isn't great. They got a Florida State team next week that is going to be on a backup quarterback. I don't know what's going to happen there. There's a chance Louisville will win the ACC. What can I say? There's a chance it can happen. Yeah. I think Louisville win this one, but it's very peculiar to me. Number 10 team in the nation, at home, going up against a Kentucky team that is underachieved this year. Louisville's only a 6.5 point favorite. You're the number 10 team in the nation. You should be a 12, 14, 16, 18 point favorite. Just saying. Just saying. Moving on, this game is more here because it's another one of those rivalries, one of the biggest rivalries in college football. It is number 8 Alabama traveling to the Plains to face off against Auburn. I don't think Auburn have a chance in this game at all. They lost to New Mexico State last week, which just very much means that they're winning this game somehow, some way. Alabama might be looking ahead a tiny bit to Alabama or to Georgia next week. I don't think Nick Saban's going to let that happen. I think Alabama roll in this one just because Auburn's that bad. All right, so that's the first 6. We might as well flip the page, look at the last 6. A few of these here kind of were just thrown in to fill in and put out some knowledge here, but hey. Territorial Cup 3:30 ESPN. It is number 15 Arizona facing off against Arizona State. The only reason why this is on here is because it's in Tempe. If this was in Tucson, Arizona's blowing them out of the water. Something with Arizona going to Tempe and Arizona State playing at home, it's always dark voodoo, it seems. If this game was at night, I'd be hammering Arizona State, and not money line, but their point spread. I'd love that number. I don't remember what it is right now. I want to say it's 14 or 15, which is just outlandish. But Arizona's been on a roll lately. Their fate for a possible Pac-12 title will be decided by then. If Oregon obviously lose, they only have to win. But if Oregon win, they already know that they're out. But I just like watching this Arizona team play. They've really figured it out the past few weeks, and they're just an entertaining team to watch. Moving on, 4 o'clock, Fox. It is the last Apple Cup as a conference game. As I mentioned earlier when we were talking Oregon and Oregon State, the game has been extended 2028, 2024. It will be played in Lumen Field, home of the Seahawks. I think that was just settled on because they couldn't figure out anything past 2028. And you don't want to do a contract to 2027. 2028 is just a better number. And then I believe it goes Pullman, Seattle, Pullman, Seattle. I could be wrong on that one. It actually might be. I think it actually goes Lumen Field, which is Seattle. Seattle for 25, so Husky Stadium, then Pullman, then Seattle again, then Pullman for 28, and then think they'll figure it out from there. I don't know if it gets extended beyond that, honestly. I don't know if Washington really wants to play this game. I know that they signed this contract, so that obviously means something. Just, being with the fat cats and the big wigs in the Big Ten, you don't want to be schlepping around with a a Pac West combined conference team, I guess. I don't know. But does this fall into my scenario of a team being screwed and the line and all that stuff? Absolutely it does. Last conference game, Washington State can spoil Washington's all their hopes. Obviously, they've clinched a spot in the Pac-12 conference title game. But playoffs, perfect season, Penix Heisman possibly, all of that could be spoiled with the Washington State win. And then, Washington hasn't won a game by double digits since September. Washington's a 14.5-point favorite in this game. I love the Cougars in this one based on that stat alone. Washington can't win double-digit games. Now that I've said that, they'll win this weekend by 20. But, yeah, this does fall into that criteria of, and I love Washington State in this one. Not money line, but I do love the spread. Moving on, a battle of backup quarterbacks. Florida State down Jordan Travis with that just horrific injury, leg injury from last week. He's obviously out the season. And Graham Mertz for Florida out, I believe, the rest of the season with a broken collarbone. That happened last week also. Florida's fighting for bowl eligibility in this one. Florida State's just fighting to keep those playoff hopes alive. In the Swamp, 7 p.m. kickoff. I really want to lean the Gators here because this just feels like a spot. I don't trust Billy Napier. Honestly, I really don't trust him. I think this ends up being a loss for them, which really sucks for Gator fans, obviously. Florida fans are just outrageous as some of the most entertaining fans in college football. Will Billy Napier be fired if they lose this game? I wouldn't put it past Florida, honestly. I wouldn't. They need a rebuild, which they're trying. But if Billy Napier's fired, I mean, you can kiss that rebuild out the window because you're restarting all over again with a new coach. So, I mean, what are we doing here, Florida? We'll see what happens. I still like Florida State in this game. They're 6.5-point favorite, which isn't a lot against a bad Florida team. So, I don't know. This game was purely thrown on here for this stat alone. It's number 18 Notre Dame against Stanford. This is the last college football game on the Pac-12 network, at least in its current iteration. I expect Notre Dame to win this one. I don't really think there's a question of that. Stanford hasn't been good all year. They did play Washington close, though, so I will give them that. Number 24, Clemson traveled down to Williams-Brice Stadium to face off against the Gamecocks. Last week was just a magical scene for Gamecock faithful. Darude, the Swedish DJ, I think, that created that song Sandstorm, the yeah, that one. That's a big South Carolina thing. So for him to be there, that was a huge thing for South Carolina. They got the win against Kentucky. If he was there this week, I would lean South Carolina in this one. I like it because they're at home against a 7-4 Clemson team that hasn't been good all year, and South Carolina fighting for bowl eligibility. But I still think Clemson win this one. With South Carolina getting that win last year, I feel like Clemson really wants that revenge. I think Clemson win this one. And then finally, we get to the last game of this six-pack. I know I've been rambling on about college football for almost a half hour now, but we'll pick it up a little. This game, kind of like the Notre Dame-Stanford game, thrown on here because of the reasoning behind it. This is the final Pac-12 regular season game, at least in its current iteration. It is ACC-bound Cal versus Big Ten-bound UCLA at the Rose Bowl. One final time. Will the last person to leave please turn out the lights? The party is over for the Pac-12 conference. Now moving on to the league that this Thanksgiving holiday has focused around since 1934, since the Detroit Lions started this tradition. It is the NFL. We've got a just very interesting slate, to say the least, this weekend. We got some games that could potentially be good, but we've got some awful games, to be honest. Some really, really bad ones. But first, we do start off with the team that started it all. It's the Detroit Lions playing at home, facing off against in-division opponents, the Green Bay Packers. These two teams couldn't be going in opposite directions if they tried right now. They are completely separate ways. Green Bay, I don't even know what to think. Jordan Love looks iffy, to say the least. The Lions are flying high. They're going up against a team that they love to feast on, which is a below 500 opponent. I expect the Lions to win this game. I feel like Ford Field's going to be rocking for this one. And I just think that the Lions win this one kind of quite easily, even though I'm wearing a Packers jersey here. I kind of think the Lions win easy here, which kind of sucks to say, but they're feasting on a opponent that's under 500, which, like I said, they love to beat up on and keep boosting that record. But you only play who's in front of you, so I can't fault them. Moving on, the team that kind of took up this tradition, I believe 1961 at the Cotton Bowl. They said, you know what, the Lions are doing this, why don't we do it? And that is the Dallas Cowboys. They've done it ever since. Halftime, the kickoff for the Red Kettle campaign for the Salvation Army. It is the Washington Commanders against the Dallas Cowboys, another division matchup. Thankful this year with the NFL, thing I am thankful for is all three of the Thanksgiving games, four if you want to include the Black Friday game, they're all division games, which they feel like they mean more. So thank you, NFL, for that. But it is the Cowboys and it is the Commanders. The Commanders aren't good. Last week they looked awful against a bad Giants team. The Cowboys, they're the Cowboys. They are what they are. Overrated, but good. Cowboys win this one. And then finally, as always, as of recently, I guess I would say, I believe this game technically started in 2006. It was an NFL Network exclusive. NBC ended up getting the rights in 2010, maybe, somewhere around there. I don't really remember. But it is the primetime Thanksgiving game. It is the San Francisco 49ers traveling to Seattle to face off against the Seahawks. I like this game. I don't like it as much as I did with all the injuries that Seattle gained last week. But the 49ers seem to got their groove back, which is a big factor in this one. I expect them to win because Geno Smith might not be playing, and I think Drew Lock's their backup. Not great. Kenneth Walker mostly likely out. That's two big offensive pieces out for the Seahawks, and I expect the 49ers to take control of that. For the first time ever, we do have a Black Friday game, and it's a 3 p.m. kickoff on Friday. This kind of feels... I honestly don't know how to feel about this. Black Friday has always been college football, and the NFL kind of creeping into it. Don't love that, honestly, but I don't know. This is mostly just because Amazon didn't get their Thursday night game. They wanted their own game, I guess I would say. I've already seen the stats. They're selling ads for like double the money that they usually do for a normal Thursday night game. So they're trying to make this a thing, and they probably will end up doing it. I expect Black Friday deals to be interwinkled into this game because it's on Amazon Prime. I don't even know if I mentioned the game yet. It's the Dolphins and the Jets. Tim Boyle starting at quarterback for the Jets. Zach Wilson benched. He's out of here. Aaron Rodgers might be back by Christmas. I don't know how it's possible. No idea, but hey, he might be back. He might take a hit his first game back, and his leg might just fall off. Who knows? Because Achilles injuries don't heal in 3 months, 4 months. The Dolphins, they're kind of like the Lions. They are exactly like the Lions. They love feasting on a below 500 opponent. That's what the Jets are. They're going up against Tim Boyle. Dolphins roll in this one. And now we get into Sunday. And this slate is so bad. It honestly is awful. There's 2 games, I think, that actually look somewhat entertaining. You got the Saints and the Falcons, an NFC South battle, which the NFC South is awful. So that should be outstanding. Desmond Ridder starting at quarterback again for the Falcons. Okay. You have the Steelers, who fired Matt Canada. Good for them, I guess. You still have Kenny Pickett as your quarterback. Boo. Going up against the Bengals, Joe Burrow out for the season. Jake Browning, I believe, is the backup quarterback. Okay. This game would have been more entertaining with Joe Burrow. Not anymore. The Panthers and the Titans face off. 2 South, I guess, teams. Do you consider Tennessee the South? I don't know. Do you consider Carolina the South? Mid-South. We'll say the Mid-South. Because they're not really South. They're the Mid-South. 2 Mid-South teams that are awful going up against each other. Yeah, I just really want to tune in for that one. The Buccaneers, a team that just have pieces that don't go together. They're going up against the Indianapolis Colts, which are a team that could get feisty because of all the quarterback injuries in the AFC. They might sneak into a playoff spot, including they have their own injury with Anthony Richardson out this season, but they have Gardner Minshew, which is somewhat of a savior. This used to be a good matchup years ago. They met in 2 Super Bowls. It was the Patriots and the Giants. Both teams are just absolutely awful now. Another one. Just can't wait. This game's actually going to be entertaining. The Jaguars and the Texans, the 2 teams that most likely will be battling it out for that AFC South crown, even though the Jaguars kind of have the advantage in this one. I expect them to win the South, but I don't expect them to win this game. I like the Texans in this one at home. It just kind of feels right. CJ Stroud's got this team figured out, and it's year 1 for him. Okay. I kind of lied. I kind of missed this game. I think there's 3 watchable games this weekend. Or Sunday slate, I should say. Browns and Broncos. Now, yes, the Browns are down their quarterback. They got Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They snuck away with a victory against the bad Steelers. The Broncos maybe finally figuring things out. Maybe finally. It might actually be an entertaining game. So, hey, I'm here for it if that's the case. I also not thrilled about it if it's a close game, because if it's close, that means my heart rate will be through the roof. But hopefully the Browns pull away with the victory. Given that it's in Mile High, I got to give the advantage to the Broncos, though. You got the Rams and the Cardinals. The Cardinals, we have documented many times, not good, going up against the Rams, which are in the hunt, and they currently sit in 11th in the NFC. That team's falling apart. They did give it all up for a Super Bowl, and I'd rather have one Super Bowl than none. So, what can I say? The Chiefs, which gave away a game against Philadelphia on Monday Night Football, they traveled to Las Vegas to take on a Raiders team. I honestly don't know what to think of them. They kept it close with the Dolphins. They now are 2-1 under Antonio Pierce, interim head coach. I still expect the Chiefs to win this. The Bills and the Eagles, it would have been an entertaining game in the preseason when both teams were supposed to be really good. Now the Bills kind of suck. I believe they're above 500 right now. Congrats to them for making it there. The Eagles, they snuck away with that victory in KC. They're starting to they're starting to put a little bit of a gap for that 1 seed in the NFC. That's a borderline interesting game because I do feel like the Bills find a way to turn this around eventually. I just don't know if it's ever coming, honestly. Sunday Night Football, it is the Ravens going to LA to face off against the Chargers. How many more times do we have to watch the Chargers in prime time? It's the same team every single week. Justin Herbert putting up massive stats. He could be an outstanding quarterback if he had a coach that actually knew what he was doing. If he had a defense that could stop anything, the Chargers would be a playoff team. Guess what? They're not, because they don't have a coach who knows anything. And they have a defense that can't stop anybody. And then we get to the Monday night game. It's the Bears and the Vikings. Do we have to watch the Bears? Really? Really? The Bears? Josh Dobbs doing a great job with the Vikings. I think the Vikings win this one because it's at home. Like I said, this slate of games, not great. And then finally, since we didn't do a recap of the past weekend, do want to mention this. Quite a big upset happened in Canada this past weekend. As you can see, repping the vintage Anthony Calvillo Montreal Alouettes jersey. We changed the background a little bit today. We did have the... Oh, that doesn't really work. There we go. The official game used CFL football from 2014, I believe, the 2014 Grey Cup, 102nd. The Rough Riders did not win that one either. They won 101, though. But we're here to talk about 110. Montreal Alouettes. They win the Grey Cup. They defeat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 28-24. What a back-and-forth game. I know nobody watching this video probably watched this game, which is fine. You missed out on a great game. Maybe you saw it in Chris Berman's fastest 3 minutes, because he always does that every year. And honestly, he's one of very few in the media. Honestly, he might be the only one in American media that acknowledges the CFL. And I get it. It's the Canadian Football League. We're in America. You don't need to acknowledge it because all that. Chris Berman every year, fastest 3 minutes. He always does the Grey Cup. I know last week he did the East and West Finals. I want to say he does the East and West Finals every year. I know when he did the 2-minute drill going in with Swami. I know he used to feature the CFL a lot. I know he did a feature on Anthony Calvillo becoming the all-time passing leader, which, again, that was a great... I still remember that to this day. That was a great 2-minute drill. Or I don't even remember what it was called. It's been so long since he's done one. But, again, massive respect to Chris Berman. Thank you for shining a light on this league, even though nobody else wants to, and I understand. But it was the Montreal Alouettes getting a very exciting victory in this one. A Cody Fajardo touchdown pass with 12 seconds left in the game gives the Alouettes the victory in this one. Denies Winnipeg their third Grey Cup in 4 seasons. Dynasty questions still kind of up in the air. I mean, winning 50% of your Grey Cups pretty good in the past 4 years when you've been to 4. Also, losing 2 straight on just defensive chokes, not great. So, obviously, arguments can be had there, but Montreal walks away with their first Grey Cup since 2010, their 8th total. That obviously it includes their past franchises that were the Alouettes, but we don't need to get into all that because truly this Alouettes team started in Baltimore in 94, went to the Grey Cup in 94, won the Grey Cup in 95, CFL USA shuts down, they move to Montreal, become this Alouettes. Again, you don't care. But given that, that's going to wrap up what seems like a marathon of an episode. What an episode. We covered a lot. Like I said, it's feast week, and we are feasting on football. So hopefully you tuned into this video, enjoyed it. Hopefully you got a good football preview, give you some ideas for this weekend of what you could possibly watch. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you stumbled across this video, hit like, hit subscribe, tell anybody you know about it, share it with people. Who knows? Maybe we find some other great football fans that just love football. So thank you so much for watching. We will be back to recap this cornucopia football. Hopefully you are not sleeping and passed out from all this football come Tuesday when we recap it all right back here on Pigskin Perspectives.